Today we're going to talk about grazing. All right, folks, lately I've been getting a lot of questions. William tells me through other social media forums as well concerning grazing and how we go about doing it. And there seems to be a fair amount of fear of doing it wrong. Well, folks, let me just tell you right from the beginning, the only way to really do it wrong is to leave your animals in one spot indefinitely. Now, there's a bunch of different methods in which you can go about this, and there's a bunch of awesome teachers out there, much of which you can get this information for free. People like Joel Salatin, Greg Judy, who's my personal favorite, Jim Garrish, the list is long, Cody Holmes. All these people I've learned from, read their books, used their methods, made tons of mistakes, but within this system, there really aren't that many mistakes as long as you keep them moving. We've been here almost a year. For me, December will mark 1 year. The area where I'm standing was largely mud, trampled path, highly compacted because they had way too many cows. The previous owners had way too many cows in a small area. So what that leads to is overgrazing. And so you have nothing but weeds, high compaction, and then you get a different kind of weeds for that. So what we did the first time out is, in terms of grazing, was, now we didn't have this high speed structure behind me that Michelle made. What we were using at that time was a dog kennel, because it was easy, it was cheap, and we were just trying to get a foothold. So we would literally lift it up, move it from every makeshift paddock all the way down the property, all the way back up the property, which was a nightmare. But we knew the importance of keeping these guys moving. So when we got a chance, when we got things somewhat caught up, we took the time to make this sheep tractor, and it's a variation of the one from the sheep tractor company down in Texas. Michelle welded it together, we painted it, we made adjustments, we did all that we had to make this thing work within this terrain, and it's extreme terrain, I hope to some extent you can tell behind me. So it has to be nimble enough, it has to articulate enough, it has to be able to be moved, in many cases by one person, preferably downhill, and it has to have all the attributes. It has to provide shade, it has to provide protection. So we came up with that in lieu of using the dog kennel to move these guys around. And we've been largely happy with it. So we've been also getting questions about that as well. Now, what we're going to demonstrate today is just how simple this can be. And depending on the area where you are, you may very well want to leave them within that sheep tractor, which in this case just happens to be this is a 14 by 14. Typically they're about 16 by 16. We scaled it down a little bit. We made a number of adjustments. Go back and watch that video to see how it was done and the reasons why we did it. As you can see right now, they're in we'll call it a rectangle. It isn't, but we'll call it a rectangle. So what's been happening is, and I'll show it to you in greater detail on a blackboard. So it's gonna go that way. We're gonna reassemble the net, let them out. And then the following day, we'll just flip the net on this side. The sheep tractor itself isn't gonna go anywhere, and we'll let them do that. And it's so incredibly simple. Now, you may be asking, how long do they need to stay there? The typical model we go with, we let them eat a third of the foliage, stomp a third, and then we leave a third. And these guys are very effective at that. We're nowhere near the stocking capacity that we need for this property, but these guys even though they're Michelle's pets, they're doing a brilliant job of keeping us ahead of things and bringing things back. We're seeing improvement within less than a year that is just really remarkable. And it's not that hard. Just keep them moving. There are a bunch of different methodologies. There's high density grazing where you can have them go there, eat it all the way down, then you leave a longer recovery period. In this case, all we're doing, and the recovery period in our case, is about anywhere between 90 to 100 days, somewhere thereabouts. It can be longer, it can be shorter, depending on the methodology you use. No matter what, it will improve as long as you don't leave them there too long. Now, we're getting to the point where we're starting to come in on winter, and you can see all the frost behind me. It's still not enough to kill anything, And we're also banking forage too, and that's a whole nother video unto itself. So what's happening right now is we move these guys and the chickens come behind, they cleanse the area. So with that said, we're gonna get these guys moved down the slope, reassemble the net, quick, fast, easy, no time at all. All right, so let me kind of break it down on paper to give you a better understanding of how this works. And folks, it's really not that difficult. In fact, there are so many different ways you can go about it. And anybody that's interested in grazing out there, there are a lot of people out there that are content to get a lot of their information from YouTube, which is wonderful in many ways. But there are so many things you can't possibly get here. So I highly recommend that you read both of Greg Judy's books and check out the work of Jim Garrish. Kick the Hay Habit. Really good resources, folks. So in our particular place, this red represents the lamb tractor or sheep tractor. And the arrow there obviously represents the direction of travel. Now, as it goes, the slope goes up this way and then down this way, and it's a combination of both. We're in weird, rough terrain. But here's exactly how we do it. So we basically take our portable net, and this line down the middle represents what I call the trunk line, and it's a tethering system that I use. So all I do is take the net and tether it to the hot wire that's going out there. It just stays out there permanently. So bam, they work this for a day. And generally, if you want the easiest way to go about it, they eat a third of the forage, they stomp a third, and they leave a third. So we leave them there that day. And then all we do is take the net, gather it up from this side over, and then bring it over to this end. And then they work that for a day. And then the sheep tractor moves up, and then, same thing this way. Easy grazing. And then when you add it out, when you figure it all up, you can figure out what your grazing pattern may be. Maybe, depending on the amount of forage you have there, maybe they stay here 2 days. Maybe they stay 3. But we never leave anything in one place, at least not their sheep tractor, for longer than 3 days, because it gets a little mucky in there. And these are animals, as of all animals, can have a problem with parasite load if you leave them there too long. So they get up the hill, they work the side of the house, which is down here. Then they come back the other direction. And then, of course, it's the same exact thing over and over. They work that for a day, come back, work this for a day. Now, you may be asking yourself, man, that seems like a whole lot of work to sit there and run these nets every day. For us, no, it isn't, because it's become something like a military battle drill. We barely have to speak to one another when we do it, because we've gotten so good at working together when doing this that we kind of know what the expectation is every day. So it takes some time. So for us to do this, and this is moving the sheep, and then right behind them is the chickens also, for us to do this might take at the most maybe 15, 20 minutes. And that's gathering up the eggs, resetting the nets, the whole 9 yards. And that's really not much to ask as far as chores for the course of a day. It's really not that much. Now, eventually, as it gets colder and colder, we're going to take our chickens out of this system and put them in the barn. And then depending on how things go, we may do the same with the sheep, because we might not have stockpiled enough forage to get them all the way through the winter. I suspect that we can, but that's a future video down the road. Now, I want to also say that, using the nets takes a little more time. And we're ultimately going to get away from that, but it requires, within the system that I'm most comfortable with, it's one that we've largely, I don't know if other people are doing it, but I think we've invented a certain way that works for us. Now, it's going to involve getting a hot perimeter fence all the way around this property, which, when we get to that point, we'll do away with this portable netting, and then we can get into polywire, which is exactly what I want to ultimately get to. But I don't feel comfortable doing that until we get A, a perimeter fence, and B, at least one livestock guardian dog. And that'll all make sense in the future. But if you want the simplest way to do it in the humblest means, just requires a hot wire down the middle, portable fencing for your sheep, and portable fencing for your chickens. All right, there you have it, folks. That is it in a nutshell. Like I said, go back and look at some of the references I gave you There are so many wonderful people out there, and the cool thing about it is these days you can actually get up close and personal through YouTube or some other video platform where you can actually see these things done, not only here but from people that are way better experts at this, and I've named some of them. So look at publications like Stockman Grass Farmer and so many others out there. Maybe not in terms of publications, but there's so much knowledge out there, as long as you're not watching any election coverage. But if you want to improve your soil, you want to improve the vegetation, you want to improve everything about your place, it's going to require something from you. That's why it's called management intensive grazing. So I won't belabor the point. We'll just move on. And if you got any questions, leave them down below. Hopefully we covered some of the questions people had out there. So until next time, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for permaculture is my passion, because it really is. We'll see you next time.